never shone on me.
When Roland Abante stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, few people in the audience knew who he was, where he came from, or how long he had waited for a moment like this. He was a fisherman from the Philippines, wearing a simple shirt and holding years of struggle behind his eyes. But when the crowd heard his voice, everything changed. But what most people didn't see was the extremely challenging journey that led him up to that very moment, and the struggles that continued after he left the show. It turns out that Roland may be caught in the dark and harsh reality of international fame. The question is, where is Roland Abante now? And how has he been coping since he walked off the stage at America's Got Talent? You'd be shocked when you find out what he's been through. The fisherman who sang his way to stardom. Before the world fell in love with him on the grand stage of America's Got Talent, Roland Abante was simply known as Bunot in his hometown of Cebu, Philippines. To most people there, he was the fisherman who drove a cab by day and sang his heart out by night. And to those who had heard him sing, it was pretty clear that he had something remarkable hiding in plain sight. Roland's story begins far from the bright lights and the international stage he would eventually grace. He wasn't born with a silver spoon, and he was raised in a community where survival came first and dreams came second. From a young age, Roland learned to survive. Life wasn't gentle in the coastal city of Cebu, and many like him were forced to grow up quickly. Education wasn't guaranteed, and comfort wasn't expected. The ocean was both a provider and a daily risk. And for Roland, it became a way of life. As a fisherman, Roland's days began before the sun rose. He would head out to sea in a small boat, sometimes for hours, casting nets and hoping for a good catch. The work was brutally physical. There were no holidays or safety nets, only hard labor and the constant uncertainty of whether the day's efforts would put food on the table. Some days the sea was kind, on other days he came home empty-handed. But even in the harshest moments, Roland remained grounded and resilient. But there was another side to Roland's life that kept him going when everything else felt heavy. Roland had always loved music. As a child, he would sing along to songs on the radio, mimicking famous Filipino balladeers like April Boy Regino and Ariel Rivera. He didn't have formal training, and he couldn't afford music lessons, but what he lacked in opportunity, he made up for in passion. His voice was his companion, a source of comfort, and a means of release. Karaoke bars became his escape. In the Philippines, karaoke isn't just entertainment. It's a cultural staple. It's where families gather, friends compete, and neighbors cheer each other on. For Roland, it was more than fun. It was a stage and a medium to express himself. After long, tiring days, he would find his way to a karaoke bar. And there, in front of small, often noisy crowds, he transformed. His voice would swell with emotion, delivering each note with a raw honesty that made even strangers stop and listen. But it wasn't just casual singing. Roland began entering amateur contests, first in barangay events, then larger competitions in nearby towns. He joined Tawag ng Tanghalan, one of the most popular televised singing contests in the Philippines, broadcast as part of the noontime show, It's Showtime. Competing on that platform wasn't just about winning, it was about validation. For someone like Roland without connections, wealth, or formal training, it was a chance to be taken seriously. And on that show, he was. His performances earned applause, but his journey was far from easy. The competition was fierce, the odds always stacked against underdogs like him who didn't have the sleek look or the storybook image of a pop star. What he had was pure talent, and slowly he began building a quiet following of people who saw his gift and unfiltered talent for what it was. Roland's first big break came not from a major talent scout or a big network, but from something far simpler. You see, Roland began recording videos where he would sing his heart out, And these videos quickly made their way around Filipino social media circles and even spread further. Viewers from around the world were stunned, not just by the strength of his vocals, but by the raw emotion behind every word he sang. Soon, he was being recognized beyond his small town, and it wasn't long before he decided to dream for something even bigger. Roland's life took a turning point when he made the decision to audition for America's Got Talent. But this wasn't just another contest. This was a lifetime opportunity and a chance to sing on one of the most watched talent platforms in the world. But it wasn't without pressure. Representing himself was one thing. Representing his country was another. He carried with him not just his personal dreams, but the hopes of an entire nation of working-class dreamers, people who, like him, had been told to stay in their lane, to work hard, and expect little. This decision would mark the beginning of international fame for Roland, and his performance would go on to silence the room, wow the judges, and send social media into a frenzy. But what happened on that stage wasn't just about a song, it was about Roland's lifetime of struggle finally being heard. The America's Got Talent moment that left fans in shock. Roland's journey to the America's Got Talent stage wasn't simple. Visas had to be arranged, travel plans had to be made. And for a man who had barely left his region, flying to the United States was a massive leap, but he did it. Roland stepped into a new world that seemed a million miles from the shores of Cebu, yet brought him back home every time he sang. There's something powerful about a man who's lived a life of hardship, standing confidently in front of a global audience. And so, when Roland finally walked onto the stage, dressed simply, the crowd and judges weren't sure what to expect. He introduced himself and shared his story of being a fisherman from Cebu, Philippines, who dreamt of singing for the world. When asked why he chose to compete in the 18th season of America's Got Talent, with tears in his eyes, he said, "This is my big dream, to be here." Those words immediately shifted the atmosphere in the room. You could see the curiosity in the judge's eyes and hear the silence settle over the crowd. And when he finally opened his mouth to sing, everything changed. Roland chose When a Man Loves a Woman, the 1966 soul classic originally recorded by Percy Sledge. It's a powerhouse of a song that's rich in emotion, demanding in range, and definitely not easy to pull off. But as the first few notes left Roland's mouth, the entire room seemed to freeze. His voice wasn't just strong, it was soaked in emotion. Every lyric felt lived in, every note carried weight, and his vocals had that rare, haunting quality that made people stop in their tracks and listen. In just seconds, the nervous fisherman from Cebu had transformed into a commanding vocal force. The camera panned across the audience. Some were swaying, some were visibly stunned, and some were even tearing up. When Roland hit the high notes, gasps rang out from the crowd. The judges were visibly moved. Simon Cowell, who is famously hard to impress, looked on with a softened expression. Heidi Klum appeared spellbound, while Sofia Vergara smiled in disbelief. And by the time Roland wrapped up the final note, the entire auditorium was on its feet, erupting into applause. Simon Cowell leaned in and praised his performance, saying, "You were so nervous, I genuinely thought for one moment that you weren't going to be able to do this. And then that happened, and it made me love this audition even more. I really like you. That was a great audition. Really brilliant." Perhaps the most emotional comment came from Judge Sofia Vergara, who said, "I have a feeling you're going to have to stop fishing. This is where you needed to be." That comment said it all. Roland was destined for more, and America's Got Talent was the perfect opportunity to showcase his talent to the world. And his performance captured everything people love about the show. Roland wasn't a trained singer. He didn't have years of vocal coaching or experience on major stages, but his unfiltered talent was more than enough to connect him with people across the world. After the episode aired, clips of his performance went viral almost instantly. Social media lit up with praise. Fans flooded the comments with support, hailing Roland as one of the best vocalists to grace the America's Got Talent stage that season. Filipino communities across the globe rallied behind him, proudly sharing his story and celebrating one of their own finally getting the recognition he deserved. The wave of support carried Roland through the early stages of the competition and into the semifinals. For many, it felt like destiny, like he was on track to make it all the way to the finals, perhaps even win the entire show. His voice, his story, and his humility were a rare combination that audiences connected with deeply. In fact, after one of his performances during the show, Judge Heidi Klum confessed that his voice had so much grit and texture. She went on to say, "It was beautiful, to be honest, one of my favorites of tonight. And if there's another golden buzzer that could push you right to the finale, I would push it for you right now." But then came the moment no one saw coming. In the semifinals, Roland once again delivered a soulful performance. It was powerful, emotional, and technically strong. He gave everything he had, standing on that stage as if he knew how much was riding on it. But when the results were revealed, Roland's name was not called. He had been eliminated. The audience was completely shocked. Viewers online expressed their disbelief, frustration, and heartbreak. Many felt that Roland had been overlooked, that his talent had outshone several of the contestants who made it through. On social media platforms, fans wondered how they could let him go. Some said he was one of the best voices this season, while others even claimed he was robbed. Some of the show's commentators and fan pages questioned the result. They speculated that a lack of flashy production or visual stage elements might have played against him. Others believed that being a quiet, humble figure in a show full of dramatic acts may have made him less marketable to certain audience segments. But almost everyone agreed to the fact that Roland Abante's elimination felt deeply unfair. But the most controversial aspect of his elimination happened when some fans went as far as accusing America's Got Talent of quietly discriminating against Roland Abante because of his nationality. They couldn't understand how someone with such raw vocal talent and overwhelming public support could not make it to the finals. These fans also began questioning whether the show was truly fair to international contestants. Others argued that Roland's elimination reflected an unspoken bias, that despite his performance moving both the judges and the crowd, he was never going to win because he wasn't American. The controversy even sparked wider debates about the show's format, and a handful of viewers even suggested that perhaps the show should be limited strictly to American citizens to avoid wasting the time of talented foreigners who may be appreciated but never fully embraced. They pointed out how rare it is for non-American acts to go all the way to the top, especially in recent seasons. Still, not everyone agreed. Some defended the show's global approach, saying that talent knows no borders and that Roland's inclusion alone was a win for diversity. But the tension was already there, and the speculation that maybe Roland didn't just lose because of votes, but because of something deeper made his elimination more difficult. While there's no proof of bias, the frustration was real. For fans who believed in him, Roland's early exit didn't just feel disappointing. It felt unfair, with many fans wondering if his passport held him back more than his performance ever could. Still, Roland took the news with the same grace and dignity he had shown from the beginning. He thanked his supporters, expressed gratitude to the judges, and said he was proud to have made it as far as he did. There was no bitterness, only quiet strength. For his fans, the shock of his exit didn't fade easily. Many continued to share his audition clip, keeping his performance alive in memory. Others began following his journey outside the show, wanting to know what he would do next. Would he get a record deal? or would he be invited to sing on other global stages? But what happens to artists like Roland after the cameras stop rolling is a story rarely told. And for Roland, the end of America's Got Talent marked the beginning of a different kind of challenge that was much closer to the harsh reality he had always known. Because after the lights went down and the stage was packed away, Roland was left to face something much harder than elimination. He had to deal with the painful aftermath of a dream interrupted. The heartbreaking reality of life after America's Got Talent. For many viewers watching from home, America's Got Talent is a dream-making machine, a place where ordinary people showcase extraordinary gifts and are catapulted into stardom. The lights, the cheers, and the standing ovations are all designed to feel like a once-in-a-lifetime breakthrough. And in some ways, it truly is. But for Roland Abante, and many contestants like him, the end of the show doesn't always feel like the beginning of something new. In fact, it can feel more like a confusing, heartbreaking return to uncertainty. When Roland stepped on that stage and sang with every ounce of emotion in his soul, the response was overwhelming. Judges praised him, the crowd stood in awe, and clips of his performance went viral. Social media lit up. Fans from the Philippines and all across the globe rallied behind him. In fact, many believed he was destined for the finals, maybe even the win. But then, it didn't happen. Despite the support, the noise, and the undeniable talent, Roland Abante was eliminated before reaching the final stage of the competition. And just like that, the fairy tale came to a halt. For Roland, the elimination wasn't just disappointing, it was deeply emotional. He wasn't a contestant chasing television fame, he was someone who had sacrificed everything to stand on that stage. He had traveled across the world, faced the weight of expectations from his fellow Filipinos, and put his heart on display in front of millions. Losing wasn't just about missing a title. It was about feeling like the chance he'd waited his whole life for had suddenly slipped through his fingers. The emotional toll the show takes is something many America's Got Talent contestants face, but rarely talk about publicly. When the cameras stop rolling and the attention shifts to the next act, reality sets in. There are no guarantees, no safety nets, and no clear paths forward. For every viral clip and trending hashtag, there are bills to pay, jobs to return to, and families to support. Roland's situation was even more complex because he didn't have a team of agents or PR professionals waiting to help him capitalize on the moment. What he had was a burst of fame, which could be powerful but fleeting. And that's where the harsh truth of the entertainment world begins to show itself. Many people assume that being on a show as big as America's Got Talent equals instant success, especially for those who receive strong praise. But the show is a platform, not a promise. It gives exposure, but it doesn't provide a roadmap. Contestants often find themselves facing a strange in-between space where they're famous enough to be recognized, but not secure enough to stop struggling. The fame fades faster than most people realize, and without the right structure in place, it can lead to a deeper sense of loss. For Roland, returning home meant facing that strange middle ground. He had touched global audiences, but back in Cebu, daily life still awaited. The applause was gone, and sadly, the bookings weren't rolling in like many might expect. There were no record labels chasing him down, and what he had were just a handful of local events, messages of support, and the same quiet determination he had always carried. It's not that people stopped believing in him. In fact, fans continued to pour love into his Facebook page and share his performances online. But belief alone doesn't pay the bills. And like so many other America's Got Talent contestants, Roland had to navigate the harsh contrast between emotional victory and financial reality. This is a struggle that's more common than people think. Past contestants have spoken about it. The post-show depression, the pressure to be successful now that the world knows your name, and the confusion about what to do next. Some return to regular jobs. Others try to tour independently, often with mixed success. A few are lucky enough to secure a deal or a consistent platform. But many, especially those without strong networks or business guidance, find themselves right back where they started. In Roland's case, he has expressed deep gratitude for the experience and the opportunity to be on a platform like America's Got Talent. He never took a second of it for granted, because that stage was more than just a performance for him. It was his life story condensed into a few precious minutes. But when that moment passed, so did the sense of certainty and security that came with it. It's not easy to return to ordinary life after being told by some of the most powerful names in entertainment that you're exceptional. It's even harder when your country rallies behind you, only to watch your dreams stall in front of the world. That pressure to keep going, to make it all worth it, to prove that it wasn't all for nothing, is a heavy burden to carry. For many of the show's alumni, the end of the show is actually the start of the real work. Building a career from scratch, learning how to manage sudden attention, and trying to find the right opportunities before the momentum fades. And for someone like Roland, whose background is grounded in humility and hard work, this path isn't an easy one. So, what comes next for the fisherman from Cebu, who touched the world with nothing but his voice? What's he up to now? Because the America's Got Talent stage may have gone dark, but Roland's story is far from over. What's next for Roland Abante? When Roland Abante left the America's Got Talent stage, he didn't leave as a winner in the traditional sense. But what he gained was something many performers never receive. He garnered a global audience that truly saw him, not as a manufactured act or a viral gimmick, but as a real human being. A man with a voice powerful enough to cross oceans and a story raw enough to leave people in tears. And even though the competition is over, Roland's journey isn't. If anything, it's entering its most meaningful chapter. So what's next for the fisherman-turned-singer from Cebu? Well, after the emotional roller coaster of the show, Roland has made it clear that he has no plans of fading quietly into the background. He's returning to what he loves most, with even more determination than before. His dream didn't end on that stage. If anything, the platform only reaffirmed his belief that his voice has value and that his story deserves to be told. In the weeks following his America's Got Talent appearance, Roland resumed performing at local events and festivals across the Philippines. Whether it was a community concert in Cebu or a live performance streamed online, he sang with the same passion that first brought him to international attention. He knows now that the world is listening, and that thought alone fuels his resolve to push forward with his music career. And this time, he's not starting from scratch. Thanks to the show, Roland now has a global audience that consists of Filipinos, both at home and abroad, as well as people from different cultures who connected with his authenticity. His social media following has grown, and many of his fans continue to share his past performances, comment with words of encouragement, and even ask for new songs or recordings. This kind of support is rare, and Roland knows how important it is to nurture it. He's using the platform he gained, no matter how brief it may have been, to build something longer lasting. He's exploring more professional recording opportunities. There's talk of creating an album, releasing more singles, and collaborating with other artists in the Filipino music scene. He's also made it clear that he's open to working with producers or industry professionals who see his vision and respect where he came from. Unlike many performers who rely heavily on stylists and managers to shape their public image, Roland is keeping things grounded because that's what moved audiences in the first place. And that's what he plans to keep sharing. One of the most uplifting parts of Roland's post-America's Got Talent life has been the outpouring of love from his fellow Filipinos. After his audition aired, social media lit up with people from all corners of the country expressing pride, admiration, and even heartbreak when he didn't advance to the finals. And his story resonates deeply with overseas Filipino workers, struggling artists, and everyday people who saw in him a reflection of their own hopes. In a country where music is part of the cultural soul, Roland represents the belief that even the humblest voices deserve to be heard on the world stage. That belief has translated into real support. Fans have organized Facebook groups, posted covers of his songs, and even encouraged television networks and record labels to sign him. Others have donated or contributed to fundraisers meant to help him continue his journey. For Roland, this kind of backing means everything. It's a reminder that even though he didn't win a trophy, he gained support, validation, and the knowledge that people saw him not just as a contestant, but as a symbol of resilience, hope, and talent. Amid the fame and the pressure, Roland Abante has something far more important anchoring him: his family. Behind the public performances and viral videos is a quiet but powerful support system that's been with him through every chapter. Roland is married to Roland Abante, a woman who has stood by him through his most difficult moments and celebrated his proudest achievements. Their relationship is rooted in mutual respect, and Roland often credits her as one of his biggest sources of strength. In interviews and social media posts, he has expressed how grateful he is for her patience, especially during the years when he worked long hours as a fisherman, and yet still insisted on singing late into the night. Together, they have a son named Greg. And just like his father, Greg has shown an early interest in music. Videos have surfaced of the young boy singing alongside his dad, and fans are already wondering whether another generation of talent is blooming in the Abante family. For Roland, watching his son develop a love for music has been one of the most emotional parts of this journey. It's no longer just about his dream. It's about passing that dream down and building something meaningful for the next generation. Family life keeps Roland grounded. No matter how far the journey takes him, he knows where home is. And that emotional, personal, and spiritual stability is part of why he's been able to remain authentic through all the ups and downs. But what does the future hold for Roland Abante? In many ways, it's still unfolding. But what's clear is that Roland isn't giving up. He's not treating America's Got Talent as the end of his story. If anything, he's using it as fuel to push forward, to sing louder, reach farther, and show that true talent doesn't disappear just because the spotlight moves on. He continues to express interest in doing more professional shows, releasing original songs, and perhaps even traveling internationally to connect with the Filipino diaspora. He also remains passionate about live performance, believing that the emotional connection he builds with an audience is still his greatest gift. And as the music industry continues to evolve with platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Spotify allowing independent artists to thrive, Roland has more tools than ever to reach listeners directly. He may not have won America's Got Talent, but the path he's walking now might be even more rewarding in the long run. Because Roland Abante isn't just a voice, he's a story of hard work, humility, family, heartbreak, and relentless hope. And his story is still unfolding. What do you think? Did Roland Abante deserve to win America's Got Talent? Tell us in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.